spooky place.
Imagine checking into an old, forgotten hotel where the walls whisper secrets and the air feels heavier with every step. The receptionist hands you a rusted key and warns you, don't look through the keyhole next to your room. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. What if you couldn't resist? What if you peeked and saw something staring back? Something with pale skin, a twisted smile, and eyes that burned like hellfire. Tonight, I'll tell you the story of a man who dared to look and the horrifying truth he uncovered. A truth that doesn't just haunt, it haunts. So, turn off the lights, lock your doors, and listen closely. Because once you hear this story, you might never look through a keyhole again. The thing in the keyhole. The old hotel stood at the edge of forgotten town, its crumbling facade cloaked in shadows that seemed to stretch longer than they should. The man, a weary traveler named Daniel, had chosen out of necessity. His car had broken down miles back, and this was the only shelter for hours. The receptionist, a gaunt figure with hollow eyes, handed him a rusted key and muttered, "Room 13. And whatever you do, don't look through the keyhole of the door next to yours." Daniel chuckled nervously, brushing off the warning as superstition. But as he climbed the creaking stairs to his room, the air grew colder, and the walls seemed to whisper secrets he couldn't quite hear. Room 13 was dimly lit, the wallpaper peeling like dead skin, and the bed groaned under his weight. The door next to his, room 14, stood ominously silent, its keyhole dark and uninviting. Curiosity gnawed at him. What harm could a peek do? He thought. As the clock struck midnight, Daniel pressed his eye to the keyhole. At first, there was only darkness. Then, slowly, a figure emerged. A woman with pale, almost translucent skin, her deep red eyes glowing like embers in the void. She stared directly at him, her lips curling into a smile that sent ice through his veins. Daniel stumbled back, his heart pounding, and slammed his door shut. He spent the rest of the night huddled under the thin blanket. The woman's gaze burned into his mind. The next morning, the receptionist found him in the lobby, pale and shaken. "You looked, didn't you?" she asked, her voice trembling. Daniel nodded, and she sighed heavily. Years ago, a woman was murdered in that room. Her spirit still lingers, searching for those who dare to look. Oh, and her eyes? They were completely red. Daniel's blood ran cold. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The receptionist leaned in, her breath cold against his ear. "She's marked you. She won't stop until she finds you again." Daniel fled the hotel, but the woman's eyes haunted him. Every reflection, every shadow seemed to hold her gaze. Days turned into weeks, and he tried to convince himself it was all in his head. But then the dreams began. In them, he was back at the hotel, staring through the keyhole. Each night, the woman grew closer, her red eyes burning brighter, her smile widening until it split her face in two. One night, he woke to the sound of scratching at his bedroom door. His heart raced as he crept closer, peering through the peephole. There she was, her pale face inches from the door, her red eyes locking onto his. "You can't run forever," she whispered, her voice echoing in his mind. Daniel moved to a new city, changed his number, and even altered his appearance. But no matter where he went, she found him. He began to see her in crowds, her face flickering in the corner of his vision. Strangers would stop him on the street, their eyes turning red as they whispered, "She's coming." Desperate, Daniel sought out a medium, an elderly woman with a reputation for dealing with the supernatural. She listened to his story, her face growing graver with each word. "She's not just a spirit," the medium said. "She's a harbinger, a being that exists between worlds. Once she marks you, she won't stop until she claims your soul. Is there any way to stop her?" Daniel asked, his voice trembling. The medium hesitated. "There's a ritual, but it's dangerous. You'll have to face her in the place where she died. Room 14. Daniel returned to the hotel, the air thicker and colder than before. The receptionist was gone, the lobby empty and silent. He climbed the stairs, each step echoing like a death knell. Room 14's door stood ajar, the keyhole dark and foreboding. He stepped inside, the room freezing and suffocating. The walls seemed to pulse, and the air was thick with the scent of decay. The woman appeared before him, her red eyes blazing. "You came back," she said, her voice a mix of delight and menace. Daniel held up the talisman the medium had given him, chanting the words she had taught him. The woman screamed, her form twisting and writhing. But then she laughed, a sound that shattered the air. "You think this can stop me? I've been waiting for you, Daniel. You're not the first to try." The talisman crumbled to dust, and the woman lunged at him, her hands cold and claw-like. Daniel fought, but she was too strong. As she dragged him into the darkness, he realized the truth. She wasn't just a spirit. She was a gateway, a doorway to something far worse. The next morning, the receptionist returned to the hotel, her eyes now a deep, unnatural red. She smiled as she handed a key to a new guest. "Room 13, and whatever you do, don't look through the keyhole of the door next to yours." As the guest climbed the stairs, the receptionist whispered to herself, "Another one for her collection." In room 14, the keyhole glowed faintly, and if you listened closely, you could hear Daniel's screams, echoing from a place beyond the world of the living. The woman's laughter followed, a sound that would haunt the hotel forever. The hotel had a way of drawing people in, like a moth to a flame. It wasn't just the eerie silence or the peeling wallpaper. It was something deeper, something that called to the lost, the desperate, and the curious. The receptionist, now fully under the woman's control, watched as the new guest, a young woman named Clara, climbed the stairs to room 13. Her red eyes glimmered with satisfaction. Another soul for the collection. Clara, unaware of the horrors that awaited her, settled into the room. The air was heavy, and the walls seemed to breathe. She noticed the keyhole on the door to room 14 almost immediately. It was as if it were calling to her, a silent invitation she couldn't ignore. The receptionist's warning echoed in her mind, but curiosity, that insidious force, tugged at her. As midnight approached, Clara pressed her eye to the keyhole. At first, there was nothing but darkness. Then, slowly, the woman appeared, her pale skin glowing faintly, her red eyes burning like twin suns. Clara gasped and pulled away, but it was too late. The woman's laughter echoed through the room, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Clara's nights became a living nightmare. She saw the woman in her dreams, standing at the foot of her bed, whispering words she couldn't understand. During the day, she felt a presence following her, a cold breath on the back of her neck. She tried to leave the hotel, but every path led her back to room 13. It was as if the building itself was alive, trapping her within its walls. One night, Clara woke to find the door to room 14 wide open. The woman stood in the doorway, her red eyes glowing like embers. "Join us," she whispered, her voice a siren's call. Clara tried to resist, but her body moved on its own, stepping into room 14. The door slammed shut behind her, and the room transformed. The walls bled, the floor cracked open, and the air was filled with the screams of the damned. Clara realized she wasn't alone. Dozens of figures stood in the room, their eyes hollow and their faces twisted in agony. Among them was Daniel, his once human form, now a shadow of its former self. The woman smiled, her red eyes gleaming with malice. "Welcome to my collection," she said. The medium who had tried to help Daniel had not been entirely honest. She knew the woman was more than a spirit. She was an ancient entity, a harbinger of the void, a being that fed on the souls of the living. The ritual she had given Daniel wasn't meant to banish the woman. It was meant to strengthen her. The medium had been her servant all along, luring victims to the hotel to feed the harbinger's insatiable hunger. The medium watched from the shadows as Clara was consumed, her soul added to the collection. She smiled, her own eyes now a deep, unnatural red. "The cycle continues," she whispered. But Clara was different. She had a spark of defiance, a will to survive that the others had lacked. As the woman's power enveloped her, Clara fought back, drawing on a strength she didn't know she had. She remembered the talisman Daniel had used, the words he had chanted. Though it had failed him, Clara realized it wasn't the talisman itself that held power. It was the belief behind it. She focused all her energy, all her will, into one thought. "I am not yours." The room trembled, the walls cracking as Clara's defiance grew. The woman screamed, her form flickering as Clara's will clashed with her power. For a moment, it seemed Clara might break free, but the woman was too strong. With a final, ear-splitting shriek, she pulled Clara into the void, her red eyes blazing with triumph. The hotel fell silent once more, the walls sealing themselves as if nothing had happened. The receptionist stood in the lobby, her red eyes glowing faintly. She smiled as she handed a key to a new guest. "Room 13. And whatever you do, don't look through the keyhole of the door next to yours." As the guest climbed the stairs, the receptionist whispered to herself, "Another one for her collection." But something was different this time. In room 14, the keyhole glowed faintly, and if you listened closely, you could hear Clara's voice, faint but defiant. "I am not yours." The woman's laughter echoed through the halls, but there was a note of uncertainty in it. Clara's soul had not been fully consumed. She was still fighting, her will a spark of light in the darkness. And in the void, that spark began to grow. The medium watched from the shadows, her red eyes narrowing. She could feel the balance shifting, the harbinger's power wavering. Clara's defiance had planted a seed of doubt, a crack in the entity's armor. The medium knew what she had to do. She had served the harbinger for centuries, but now she saw an opportunity, a chance to break free. She entered room 14, the walls trembling as she stepped into the void. The woman turned to her, her red eyes blazing with fury. "You dare betray me?" she hissed. The medium smiled, her own eyes glowing with a new light. "I've served you long enough," she said. "It's time for a new harbinger." With a wave of her hand, the medium unleashed a power she had kept hidden for centuries. The void trembled, the walls cracking as the two entities clashed. Clara's spark grew brighter, her will merging with the medium's power. Together, they fought the woman, their combined strength overwhelming her. With a final, ear-splitting shriek, the woman's form shattered, her red eyes fading into darkness. The void collapsed, the walls of room 14 sealing themselves once more. The medium stood in the center of the room, her eyes now a deep, unnatural red. She smiled as she felt the power of the harbinger flow through her. The hotel fell silent once more, the walls sealing themselves as if nothing had happened. The receptionist stood in the lobby, her red eyes glowing faintly. She smiled as she handed a key to a new guest. Room 13. And whatever you do, don't look through the keyhole of the door next to yours. As the guest climbed the stairs, the receptionist whispered to herself, another one for her collection. But something was different this time. In room 14, the keyhole glowed faintly, and if you listened closely, you could hear Clara's voice, faint but defiant. I'm not yours. The medium's laughter echoed through the halls, but there was a note of uncertainty in it. Clara's soul had not been fully consumed. She was still fighting, her will a spark of light in the darkness. And in the void, that spark began to grow. The cycle continued, but the balance had shifted. The Harbinger's power was no longer absolute. And in the darkness, Clara's spark grew brighter, a beacon of hope in the endless night. Thank you all for watching. Please like and subscribe for more scary stories.